Hey Milo, do you have any plans for the winter break? Asked Sawyer. Um, I'm actually going home. Oh, what about Naomi? Well, she's also going home to see her family. Ah, which means that you can't spending time with her, Sawyer said. Yeah, that's pretty much. I just wish that my family and her family could just stop doing all this. It's just insane. I mean, they've been doing this for as long as I can remember. Do you know even the particular reason? Not really. And to be honest, I don't even care what they have been doing this. Milo had been dating Naomi since their final year of high school, and now they are in fact in their senior year of college. The reason why that he and Naomi had to pretend they are nothing back home. Well, that reason is because that Milo's and Naomi's parents had been in a feud against each other for years, even before they were born. In fact, Milo's parents, especially his dad, said to him when he was younger, "Do not interact with our next door neighbors. They are our enemies, some kind." But even though the fact that they went to the same high school, he didn't even care about it. He didn't even listen to their warnings because Naomi, as he's been told, that her family were idiots. But Naomi was a sweet, kind girl. She was not like what she had been told about his family. So that's the reason why he decided not to even listen. The only times they could even interact as friends were in fact in high school. But it wasn't until when he was in the senior year when he asked her out to be his girlfriend. She said yes. And after they had just finished high school, he applied for college in Arizona that was quite distant away from his hometown. And she did the same thing. That was one way for them to be together since that was the far away from that so that they could be spending a lot more time like going out on dates, just like that. But every time when they had to go back home, they would have to pretend as nothing was between them. But when they were back in college, it was a lot of romance. But it was just that the thing is that Milo really wanted to have this family feud to just end so that her family could interact with his family so one day they could be actually as one big happy family. Even though his hopes and dreams for that was even equally shared with Naomi. "So you're going home for a winter break?" asked Sawyer. "Yeah, I am. So you and Naomi are to the same plane? I mean, we already booked our tickets for that, so aren't you going home?" No, actually, I'm actually have a family who lives here, so I'm decided to stay here." "Oh, yeah," said Sawyer. But the next day, both Milo and Naomi took a taxi for the airport, and even on the plane, they were just hoping that this could be a good Christmas. They really wish that they could spend the time together as a whole big happy family. But they all know that is impossible. Because even at one point, Milo tried to convince his dad to end this feud. But his dad refused. He said, "I won't apologize. I won't until he apologizes to me first." And even when Naomi had even asked her dad the same thing, but same response. Her dad would not end this feud until that Milo's dad apologized first. So both their parents was stubborn. "I really wish that we could do something all together as a big happy family," said Naomi. Because she was a bit sad all of this. I know. And before we step on the plane, we had to go. I had to go first so that my parents don't see you. Just in case. I agreed. I mean, they don't even know that we are just in college, though. Yeah, I mean, it's not like my family that you're just telling your family that I went to this college, and yeah, they're not like best friends or anything. Yeah, even my best friend Claire, who still lives home, had told me that I really should just leave town and move far away so that we can be together. That might be true, but well, maybe one day. There were only a few people that knew about Milo and Naomi being dating. In fact, they were even engaged. He proposed to her on her birthday only about a month earlier. She was just happy about it. But even so, she didn't wear her engagement ring when she was at home at her family's place. Because they will even start asking who this her fiance is and all that, and even want to meet him. So that is the problem for most of that. So when the plane had arrived at the airport, they were actually gave each other a kiss, and then she walked first out, and and he could see in a distance that her family was with her, but they didn't see him. Good things for that. But his family actually picked him up, and they were just happy and asked how his studies has been and all that. He said, "Yeah, it's actually been good. A lot of tests, a lot of exams, and a small parties with some friends, like that. But that's it." And even though that on Christmas they can actually just they did text each other just like happy like Merry Christmas. But even that day after Christmas when Naomi was in town with Claire, how's it things between you and him? Oh, it's going well actually. I assume you can't see each other due to the fact of, you know, that situation. Naomi just nodded as an answer. I can understand why your family has been in this feud. Beats me. I even tried to ask my parents, but they refused even to answer that question. Did he ask his family? He did once, but they never even told him. Only that it was this that been they have been have this argue, and I don't really know what exactly what's about. So, do you have any plans for otherwise? Well, I actually have been thinking of one thing that might be possible, but I have to ask him about it. Well, I will do that when I back in college, though, but since it's just really something I can't just bring out at home. Understandable. Even at Milo's house, his parents often asked him how if he found some a girlfriend or something like that. He said, not really at the moment. A lot of exams takes a lot of time, and I really barely have any free time. I do have some part-time work and all that, but yeah, and they understood, he said. And after the Christmas holiday was over, eventually it was time to go back to college, and they did. But when they were back in college, the first day before the old classes start again, Naomi told Milo that she had a plan. You know, we had talked about getting married, but is it possible for us to live together back home? I mean, due to the fact of our parents' constant fighting. Yeah, that's true. So I had something in mind. So, what is it? How about we just don't go back home afterward we finish college? What do you mean? I mean, why don't we just stay here in Arizona? Start a new life here, far from our families, far from their hostilities and their fighting feud. Milo thought for a moment and said, "You know what? That's actually not a bad idea. I do, in fact, had a cousin who actually lives in Arizona. And he knows about us. And he even agrees that our, our family's feuds are just stupid. There's no reason for doing that. He told me that we can stay at his place until we have our own. Really? Yeah, that's great. So that was the next step of the plan. So they continued to focus on their studies for college. And eventually, they finished college. But there was just one small problem next: the families. But just before college was over, Milo had actually reached out to his cousin who lived in Phoenix about the potential that they could live there for a short while until they had to find their own work and even their own place. His cousin actually lived in a decent big house, had plenty of rooms, and he was also married. But he and his wife had no problem for Milo and Naomi to stay there. So they actually got their place there. They had already got their work. Milo and Naomi decided to go back home to break the news to their families. So, but there was just one thing. It was not possible for her to bring Milo's family to Naomi's house because it will cause the same huge problem. The same thing is vice versa. So they decided to go to a neutral ground, the park. The park wasn't even that far from their place. So when Naomi's family showed up, Milo's family was already there. And Milo's dad was like, "What are you two doing here? Leave!" "Dad, I invited them." "You did what?" his dad said, screaming. "Naomi, what on earth are you doing here? And what did you bring us here?" her dad screamed. "Dad, just quiet up." "What?" "Shut up and listen. Our families have been fighting for so long, and you don't really admit for nothing. But there's something we had to tell you." "What is it?" Milo took the next step and said, "Naomi and I are in fact dating. We are engaged." Both set of families were just quiet for a moment, and both Naomi's and Milo's mom were like, "What did you say? You cannot be dating her. Break off the engagement right away. For once, I agree with her. Break it off right now." But Milo shook his head and said, "Absolutely not. If you don't, you have no place to go back to," he said. Milo's dad said to him. "Fine." "What? What do you say?" "Fine. I don't even have to worry about that. I already have my own place already." "What did you say?" "We are leaving our town to our new place. This is what we wanted just to inform all of you. We had hoped that this engagement news could have been at least broken these hostilities between our families, but it turns out they may not even be a chance. Have you never thought of what you're trying to do? I mean, what if this would have happened if you were found out and you have forced Naomi to end the relationship and you had to move away, far away from her? Have you ever thought what she would have felt? She will go into depression, and she will just one thing. What would that be?" her dad said. "Hate you." "What?" her dad almost like right in the face. "Think about it. If you try to make her leave, the one that she loved the most, it's it's the same thing. She would lost her respect, even her love for her family. Think about it, isn't it?" "Yeah, it is. I can understand how my family has been always been like this. Milo is not what you say he is. He's sweet, kind, and caring. He loves me, and I love him. So if you can't accept our relationship or your engagement or anything, I don't want to have nothing to do with you all at all. But her mom tried to convince her one last time, Sweetie, you can't be serious about this. I mean, he's the son of our family feud. He's an idiot like his family. He is not an idiot, Naomi screamed. He had been hired to work for an IT company. He's smart. He actually been studying all the coding and software when he was in college, and even business management as well. He's not that dumb that you think he is. That's the reason I don't want to even to tell you in the first place, because of how you react. Milo, just let us go. I have said what I want to say. Same here. And before I leave, Mom, Dad, thank you for raising me, but try to brainwash me to make this, to making that look made Naomi look as like a demon or something. That's the worst. And if we have kids, don't expect to ever be able to meet them. And that's goes for the same for you, for her family as well. But but you will be allowed to see them as soon as you stop this fighting, he said. Then they just walked off and they actually went to the airport and left. Shortly afterwards, they arrived to Arizona, into Phoenix. They stayed with his cousin for a short while until they had earned enough money to buy their own house. They even had a small wedding. They had in fact invited Claire and Sawyer. But there was most of this, they were just still having hard times to get even to realize that their family, they did want to invite the family, which they did. But none of their family didn't even show up. Which somehow turned out they didn't even care much about their own. So, time went on. Eventually, Milo was actually promoted at work, and he was happy about it. Even Naomi was the same. And after a while, after like 2 years of being married, they actually had their first child. And they had a son which they named Connor. About 2 years later, they had a daughter which they named Melanie. Even though, after all this time, Milo actually sent a letter back home to telling his family or his parents about, first about Connor being born, and the next about Melanie. Naomi did the same thing to her family, but they never even responded. But they actually published this on their social media. Other family members back home or other extended family and friends actually said congratulations to them for their family. But after a while, one day, out of the blue, Milo got a call, and it was actually from his mom. She said that she was sorry about all this happened. What she told him shocked the most. His dad and Naomi's dad actually had a decent talk a while back, and they ended the feud. At first, he could not believe it. So when he called another family member or another close family friend who lived on the same street, which confirmed the hostilities between Milo's family and Naomi's family was over. They were actually more friendly as before. And he was happy. So from that day, he and Naomi actually went back home with their 2 kids. And both sets of families were actually more happy now. Milo's parents actually apologized for all this, but they did. And Milo at first could not believe that was what actually was happening, but he accepted forgiveness. Naomi's family was the same thing. They apologized and felt sorry about how they treated their own daughter, but to seeing Connor and Melanie, It melted their hearts. They could not be happier. Even after all this, at one point Milo never thought that his family would never accept Naomi as their daughter-in-law. But after, just out of luck, the feud between the two families finally ended. It took more than 20 years for the family feud to finally to end. Sawyer had told Milo about this, and he was just happy that the feud was finally over. Both Naomi and Milo to see the families once for all friends. And this is how Milo and Naomi found a true love, got a big family together. The end.